Hey up everyone, welcome back. Well, this is where we left off, and the last video with all the engine mountings done and just the engine popped in so we could see. As I mentioned last time, this really fills the space nicely. I'm pleased with the way it looks. Speaking of the way it looks, if any of you are wondering what this is, I've been polishing the tank and mudguards that I painted for the Indian. Alright, so Specials are all good news and bad news. So today we're doing forks, and we've got some good news and we've got some bad news. So the first bad news was when I fitted the tank. The tank's going to be slightly higher at the front anyway because there's some rubber mountings to go on. But I found that, hang on, let me put it on properly. I found that the tap is right on top of the engine. So I was going to have to make up, so bad news, I'm going to have to make up a little turn to get the tap out here somewhere. So then we come to some good news. Good news. This is the bottom yoke and stem for the Kawasaki forks, and this taper roller bearing is exactly the same size as this. It'll go straight in, no problem. Now the stem itself is wasted, and the smaller part where the other bearing goes is a smaller bearing, so I'd have to make a piece up. But I have a choice. Actually, because this stem is longer than the steering head on here, with that in, it sticks up enough so that I could put another bottom bearing on, because I'd be down to the thicker part, just fit it straight in, and then make a spacer up and then the top yoke on. The other thing I can do is make an extension for this to get it the right length for the stem and to take the smaller bearing. And I think I'm going to go that way. And I think it might look rather odd to have a chunk of something in here, whereas if I make this up exactly the same as the headstock, it'll look better. So we're going to do that. We're going to machine a piece for there. So that was good news. But then I came across some more bad news, because God, I'm walking backwards and forwards. I'd forgotten actually I had not Commando yokes as well with this frame, and the hacksaw merchant had been at them again, because this is the bottom yoke. I've got the stem and the top yoke, but they'd actually sawn the stem off, so they must have been planning to do something. Anyway, the stem, sorry, not the stem, the yokes are, as you can see, the distance from the forks to the stem is greater on the Norton Commando ones. So what happens is, when this is in here, I'm going to have virtually no turning radius, because we're right up against the tank. So I looked at it and I thought, wait a minute, this tank's got a little bit of wiggle room. If we move it back just to about there, I think it still looks fine, particularly once the yokes or everything are on. And then I've got clearance for the forks to turn. It'll give us a good steering look. And serendipity, it moved the taps back just nicely enough so they're going to be there. So bad news, good news all the way around. Alright, so what we're going to do, I think, first is do these tank mountings. Now the tank has these built in, and they bolt onto here. So what I'm going to do is, there's just a run of weld along the top and nothing else holding these on, so I'm going to grind that bit of weld off so I can take these off complete. Then I'm going to bolt them to this, put the tank on where I want it, and just tack them in place, and that way I'll be sure the tank is nice and level and everything's the way I want it. And then I take the tank off and finish the weld along the top. So let's do that first. Now I've bolted these pieces, the two pieces, onto the tank, cleaned off the frame and everything so we can take it up. So I'll tack it in place to hold it, and then just unfasten this, lift the tank off and finish the weld. Now I've dropped them down slightly, so what I'm going to have to do is put a little piece in, a little crossing piece to make that as strong as the original mounting was. But it'll all work out well. Tank's good, tap's clear at the back end, so let me get on and weld that. So they're welded on. As I say, I've got to put a little piece in here to strengthen it all up. They've gone on nicely, so now I can set to and design the piece for the headstock. So this is what we're going to make. It's going to be made out of a piece of thick wall tubing. This dimension here is the amount of extension we need. So it's going to be turned narrower here, and that is going to fit down into the frame's headstock. That's going to be 3/4 of an inch, which is the depth the bearing goes to. Then, as I say, this is the extension. Then this here is going to be bored out to take the top bearing. So this one is slightly smaller than that one, as you'll see. So let's take some measurements and then we'll get onto the lathe. So I'll put the bottom race in so we can see this nicely seated. As you can see, that's perfect down there. That's the top bearing. So we're going to have to make a piece that long. So let me just measure to the bottom of the bearing, because that's where the cup's going to be. That's a 1/2 inch. And that's 1 inch. So the extension is going to be 1 inch plus the depth of this, and the part we're going to bore out is going to be a 1/2 inch. Yes. So let's transfer those dimensions to the drawing. I've made a slightly bigger drawing so you can see what's what, and you'll excuse the mismatch of fractions and decimals. Okay, so this here, 2 1/4 basically, is the outside diameter of the headstock. This, just over 2 inches, is the inside diameter. So it's got to drop into there 5/8. Then, as we just measured, it's going to be 1 inch high, and we're going to have it bored down a 1/2 inch for the bearing, which is 1.85, the outer race of the bearings, outer diameter. So as it happens, I've got some 2 1/4 inch tube, so that's fine. I just need to dress the outside a little bit. So what we're going to do is put it in, turn this down. Actually, I think what we'll do to give us a better grip in the chuck is we'll do this part first, because then we're holding the whole thing. Then I can just turn it round and turn that down, and then we will batter that into the frame. I'll chamfer the corners a little so that we can, well, like that, so we can weld it in. It's going to be, I mean, it's a good tight fit, and don't forget it's not being pulled in or out, so actually a press fit into there would be sufficient, because all the forces are going to hold it in there. It's not going to be a problem, but we will weld it in anyway, if for no other reason than I'm getting really enjoying using this TIG welder. The nicest thing actually with the TIG welder is, as you noticed there, that was fiberglass tank. If I'd have been wanting to gas weld or bronze those brackets on, of course I would have had to find some way of fixing them up there to hold them, whereas with the TIG it's just bzzz, and there's no heat going into the tank. Anyway, that's beside the point. I'm rambling here. So let's cut ourselves a piece of tube, face it off to the right length, the right total length, 1 5/8, and then we'll bore this, swing it round and turn that. So I've cut my piece of tube to length, and I've faced off the ends so we're all square. I'm ready to start boring out for this bearing, which wants to be 1.850, I think. 1.850 it is. Now this is 1/2 inch, but what I've decided to do, I've made this slightly longer, well, about 1/8 of an inch longer. I'm going to do the 1.85 for this 1/2 inch, but I'm actually going to go in 5/8, and the last eighth I'm going to do slightly larger, just to let this rubber lip fit in a little bit, because I notice it does in the bottom, and it'll make a nicer seal. So we've got this set at 0. Where are my glasses? Safety glasses. Here we go. I've got this set here so that I can just travel along to the 5/8. I think we can have a faster feed than that, don't you? Okay, try that. Okay, let's measure that. Then I'll carry on with this off camera, because I know some people like to watch the actual turning, but and that reading 1.7, I don't know if you can see this, 1.7, whoops, 79, 178, 1.780. So I'll finish boring this and then we'll come back. So I got that done. We went over a couple of thou, so it's not quite as tight a fit as I wanted, but we can always put a little bit of Loctite on that. Again, it's once it's all in and bolted up tight, it'll be fine. So I'm going to put this in so I can measure down again, exact measurement from there, so I can adjust my the turning here to get it into the headstock. So let me do that. I forgot I said I was going to turn down a little bit for the rubber seal, so I've done that, chamfered the edge a little bit, so now the bearing goes nicely into there. So that'll give us a good seal on that. Alright, so that's that end done. Let's say I'm going to measure up to that inner race to check our height here, and then I'm going to turn that down to fit into the steering head. So here's our piece made up. I've got the top race in. I'm not having a very good day today. I'm a couple of thou smaller on this than I wanted to be, so as you can see, it's going in a little too easily. But I've ground this out, which I think I'll grind a little bit more out so I can get right down and do a good route. And we'll weld that into there. And then when that's in, what are we doing with it? That's going to go through there. That's going to go down into there. like so. So let me grind this a little bit more, and I'll just put a couple of 3 tacks in, then we'll put the both yokes in and we can see that. So I've got the extension tacked in a few places. The next thing I had to do, as it turned out, where's it gone, is the top bearing. I had to make a little piece to just bring us up above the level of the rubber seal. I mean, the forks have been moved around for got about 15 years, so I'm not surprised maybe a couple of bits have been missing. So I'll put that in there. Then and the hole, there we go, that goes up in there. Then there's actually a lock one goes on there as well. And that goes on the top. Right, so let's see if we can put some forks in. Actually, I suppose I should pull the camera back a little bit to give you a... Oh no, you can see that. There we go. So there's that one. They put a 13mm in the top. Actually, I think it's a 12mm. Now these forks, of course, are from, what did I say, 81 to 83. So it's when everybody was playing around with, come on, air. So these forks are air assisted. But only on one side, so there's actually a little hole in each fork leg. There we go. Just there, I don't know if it shows. And there's actually a piece that goes across to join them up. But we won't bother with that for the moment. Put them in the wrong way around. No, because that bit... Anyway, we're not overly worried about that. Can change that over. The important thing was to see that the forks go in. Let me... There you go. So front forks fitted. Oh, let's check this on its new. Got a couple of little stops on, but that's not bad at all. There we go. So that's it for this week. I would think next probably need to have wheels. See if we can't make it a rolling chassis, and if I put the back wheel in, I can check on where the chain line's going to be, and we can do that shaft. So that's it for now. Enjoy yourselves.